This video will be a continuation of the last one. This is where I elaborate on some of the concepts that we brought up the last time. And I know I said I wouldn't get into the weeds, but I'm going to kind of get into the weeds on this one. We're going to get a little technical. We're going to get a little bit dense with this one. And I hope that's okay. But keep in mind, I think it's a good thing to learn about music if you are a singer, which we are. Can you be an effective choir member and not know the nuts and bolts of music and how it works? Yeah, probably. But why not? Why not learn? This is what we have chosen to do. We are choir members. We sing for the Lord, so why not offer Him the best? Why not be the best we can at what we do and learn as much about this craft as we possibly can? So I would say, yeah, this is a good thing to learn. So let's try to slog through it and just do the best we can and pick up some things that maybe we didn't know before. So we're going to talk today about some things that might appear in some of the music that we sing that we probably didn't expect. So in the first part of this lesson, we talked about the degrees of a scale. We talked about the notes that belong in the different scales. For example, in the key of F major or D minor, all the notes are natural with the exception of the B flat, which is indicated in the key signature. And in the key of G major, all the notes are natural except the F sharp, which is also shown in the key signature. So these are the notes that belong in these keys, but that does not restrict the composer from using notes that really are not technically part of the key. They can use really whatever notes they want. So a song that's in the key of F major can have sharps and flats other than B flat, and a song in E minor can have sharps and flats that aren't F sharp. But why would a composer do this? Why would he write a song in a particular key and then use notes from outside that key? Well, he might want to introduce an element of drama or tension, or maybe he wants to brighten the feel of a song a little bit, so he puts a major chord in where you would normally expect a minor chord. If a composer wants to make a piece of music more interesting, he may put something unexpected in. And we actually see quite a bit of this in the music we sing in the liturgy, and we'll look at some examples here. And as we do, I want you to see some patterns. So here's what we'll look at today: some unexpected things. So we'll see some hymns that use the flattened seventh degree of the scale, and these are all in F major. And we'll also see some that use the sharpened seventh degree of a scale, and that's always in E major, or almost always. And then where we would normally expect to see an A minor, and this will be also in the key of F, the A minor is actually an A major or an A7, and in this case it always or almost always precedes a D minor chord. And where we would normally see a D minor chord in some other songs, the D minor is actually a D major or a D7, and that always precedes a G minor, and we'll see why. And these are things that we'll see over and over again. So the first example we will look at is when they give us a song with a flattened seventh degree of the scale. So what does that mean? As you recall, a major scale looks like this. That's an F major scale. There's 7 degrees. 7 degrees and then the octave. Well, what they did is they took the 7th degree and they flattened it. They didn't do it every time, just a couple times, and only when the tenor is singing in these two instances that I found. So if we were to play the scale like that, it would sound like this, which sounds a little bit awkward, but the effect that it gives is actually pretty cool when it's sung with the rest of the voices. So in the first example is the first antiphon, which we can see here. The tenor has this E flat. That's the 7th degree of the F major scale. It's E flat. Well, E flat doesn't belong in the key of F. So why would they put it there? Well, there's a couple of reasons. I suspect one is because it just kind of sounds cool. It gives an unexpected sound, kind of a unique feel to this song. It gives it almost a bluesy feel. The other reason I think is because of the chord that they're building here. So let's look at this chord. So this is, what do we have here? We have an F, and we have an A, and we have a C, and we have an E flat. So we went straight up the spaces here, F A C E, E flat. So what chord does that give us? What that gives us is a seventh chord, or a dominant seventh chord. And so what the heck is that? As you recall, every chord is built on the first, the third, and the fifth degree of the scale. And we could keep adding notes above that. These are called extensions. And the first extension is the seventh. In this case, it's a major seventh, but the one we're looking at is what's called a dominant seventh. Sounds like that. And we could keep adding extensions. We could make it a ninth, or an 11th, or a 13th. And I think that's as high as you can go. And it actually sounds kind of terrible. But there are really real world applications for that. It's used in jazz. So is the 11th, so is the 9th. But in this case, we just want the 7th. And as I said before, when that 7th is as it should be, which is sharpened, this makes what's called a major 7th. But we are using a flattened 7th degree, which makes it a dominant 7th, or just a 7th. So why do this? Well, 7th chord, just because of the nature of the sound that it produces, it leads naturally into a B flat chord. In this case, the B flat chord. So an F 7th will draw our ear naturally into a B flat, which sounds like this. In this case, I'll lower that one octave. So when we hear the F7, the next thing our ear wants to hear is this. Now listen to them together. That's just how music works. So we've got the F7th chord takes us directly to the B flat chord, which is what we have here. So the B flat is made up of a B, of course. There's the B, or B flat. There's the D, and here's another B flat, but we would need an F for this to be a complete B flat chord. So are we missing an F here? No, we're not. Here's our F right here. And because this is a whole note, as you recall, a whole note is held for 4 beats. So 2 beats here, 2 beats here. So this F is still holding at this on this chord here. So we've got an F7, or an F dominant 7, and then a B flat. Another example of this is in the tone 2 Resurrectional Troparian. As we can see, it's the exact same scenario, exact same thing. So an F7 here, F7 leading directly to a B flat, even with this F sustaining through both chords. The only difference is down here, the bass notes are an octave lower than they were up here, but otherwise it's the same exact thing. And as we look around these two hymns, we can see that there are other instances of an E flat, or an E rather, an E being sung where it's not flat. So here, there's another one. See, so it's all over the place. So it's only in these rare instances. It's down here too, probably. Yeah, actually the very first chord has an E flat, or an E. There it is again. So it's only a few times that it does this, and that's just to give it the effect of leading us from the F7 to the B flat. The next thing we'll look at is the sharp 7th degree of the scale, whereas we looked at the flat 7th, we now look at the sharp 7th that occurs in the key of E minor. So I'll change the key signature here. And the E minor scale, as you no doubt recall, goes like this. Okay, this is the E minor scale. The tonic, of course, is the E, and the dominant would be the B, and the 7th degree is this guy right here. This is the D. Well, in the music we're going to look at right now, this 7th degree is sharpened. So where the E minor scale sounds like, that's a normal E minor scale, but when we sharpen the 7th degree, it sounds like this. Okay, that turns it into a harmonic minor. There's this sharpened 7th degree. It kind of wants to, just like that F7 in the last couple examples, it wants to lead our ear up into this this octave, this E right here, which is the whole point. That's why they do that. So the examples that we'll look at are Holy God, this arrangement of Holy God, the Kievan chant. We can see right here, there's the sharpened 7th degree right there, the sharpened D. Okay, and there it is again. And here it is again, even though it doesn't say it, it still is sharp. And there it is again. So it's all over the place in the song. In fact, to my knowledge, well, I was going to say it's always sharp, but I see D's here, okay, that are not sharp. So that tells me that not every case, but only, I guess, only when the alto is singing it, perhaps. Same with the Kostorsky cherubic hymn, very similar. We can see that we've looked at this example before in previous videos. But we look for some D's. Here's some D's here, but they're natural. Okay, some natural D's. Natural D's right here. But down here, where is it? Down here, right there, okay? There's the alto again singing the D sharp. And the D sharp continues here. So let me explain it. How is it possible now that we've got this D sharp here, and this is also D sharp, but there's not a sharp symbol in front of it. Same over here. So these are both D sharps, even though only one of them has the symbol. Well, this is because of what's called the one measure rule. So anytime there's an accidental at a note, as is the case here, this accidental applies for the rest of the measure. For every instance of that note, at least for that voice, it still applies. And then it resets at the next measure. So if there was a D here, it would just go back to natural, and that's the case here as well. So here's the D sharp. So it's just assumed, it's understood this is also D sharp. They don't have to tell you that. Now if this over here, if this was a D natural instead of D sharp, they would have to put this symbol, the natural symbol there, but they don't. So that tells you it's still D sharp. That's the one measure rule. The anaphora, the Feofanovskoya anaphora, same thing, exact same thing. The alto with the D, and look, this is there's a lot of D naturals in a row here. So not every time, just when the alto sings that D natural, there it is again, or the D sharp. There it is. Oh, and look down here. There's a bass singing the D natural, or D sharp here as well. So it's not just the alto, and it's not every time that there's a D sharp, or there's a D that it's a D sharp, just in those cases. So what this D sharp does is it creates what's called a leading tone, which is a note that really wants to resolve upward. It also gives you a dominant chord. We've kind of talked about dominant chords without really, I don't know if I used the word dominant, but this right here, this, like we saw that F7 before. This is a B7 or B dominant 7, which leads us right to this E minor chord. And same here, I guess. Yeah, same here. Probably in every case. We could take the time to really look closely at that, but I'm just going to assume that's probably the case most of the time. So what if we were to apply that same principle to a song in the key of D minor? We would come up with something like this. That's very similar, right? So here, instead of a B7, here we have an A7. So we've just gone down a step. And it's this C sharp that makes it an A7. C sharp, which technically doesn't belong in the key of F major, but here we are. And so this is something we see in some of the Prokeimenon, which we use, including this one. So the tone 5 Prokeimenon. What do we have? We have this chord, the same chord. It's inverted a little bit, so you can see that it's got the C sharp, and it's got a G there, which makes it an A7. That G. So we've got the E here, A here, C sharp, and G. So it's an A7, leading into what? A D minor. The song starts off in with this chord, which is a G minor, but then it ends up on a D minor, and you can see the alto. It starts down here. It moves from the C natural and then moves up chromatically: C natural, C sharp, and then D. So this is chromatic movement, which is one semitone at a time. And so this, again, this is another dominant. And let me explain what I mean by dominant. So a dominant chord is simply a chord built on the fifth note of a scale. So an F major, as we will see here, in F major, the fifth note is a C. So we have the tonic, which is an F. We have the octave, which is the next highest F. And the fifth note is a C. So that's called the dominant. And that's because when you build a chord on that note, let's see what this looks like. So here's a C. Actually move all these down an octave, and then give us a F major chord. So this is the tonic. This is the dominant, and in the key of F, the C major naturally wants to draw our ear up to the F. Played together, they sound like. You can see how that works. So the dominant chord has a strong pull that makes your ear want to hear the tonic, which is the home chord built on the first note of the scale. Think of it like a tension and release. So the dominant creates that tension and the tonic resolves it. There's a thing called a secondary dominant too, which we'll see a little bit of, and that's if you took another chord in the scale somewhere and we built a dominant on that chord, then that would be the secondary dominant. So let's say G, or the G minor, because in the key of F, the G will build a G minor. The G is G minor. There it is. So that's the G minor. So what's the fifth note of the G minor scale? It's this one. Whatever that is. That's a D. Right? So let's make a D. In fact, let's make it major by bringing that third up a half note. And we really should switch these. And we can even make this a seventh. So it'll sound like this. It resolves upward like that. So that's a secondary dominant because we're in the key of F, but this dominant is resolving up to another chord in that key. We can also see that down here, right? So resurrectional, procumenon in tone 7, same sort of thing. We've got that, which gives us an A7 again, which resolves to the D minor. But this starts, as you can see, this starts on an F major. So this next one we'll look at, this is the tone 8 resurrectional procumenon, and it's in the key of F major, as most of them are. And it starts with a G minor chord, which is okay. It's not terribly unusual. But then, what's the last chord of the song? It's an A major. It's an A, not an A7, because there's no G in it. It's just an A, C sharp, an E, and then another A. So it's an A major. Why? An A major does not belong in the key of F, unless, as we have seen, it is resolving to something else, and this is resolving to nothing, right? This song ends on an A major, which really gives the tone 8 procumenon a very unique and recognizable sound. The last examples we'll look at do something similar. So what we see here, we're in the key of F major, and what do we see here? We see an F sharp. Well, an F sharp does not belong in the key of F major. It just doesn't. It's not there. It doesn't belong. So it's there because of the chord that is building, which is a D major. And there's a D major. D major also doesn't belong in the key of F sharp. D minor does, but not a D major. So why is it here? It's here because of the chord that it resolves to, which is a G minor. So it's again the secondary dominant for this chord. And if we put them together, it sounds like this. So that's what we get. You can hear how the D takes you right to the G minor. Similar thing is going on here. Same thing. This is the tone 4 resurrectional procumenon. Same deal. There's a D major taking it to a D minor, and that's what the song ends on. And this is just like the chords we saw right here, except that this has the low G as well. And I want to show you this one more example. Well, a couple more examples. So this one, oh, it seems like there was something else I wanted to mention. Yes, I want to show you this. That right there. Okay, that natural, because of the one measure rule. This, because it's got the symbol. This is sharp. This is sharp because it just is. It's in the same measure. But because this is also in the same measure, they have to give you this natural sign, so you know that you're returning to natural. Now, if there's a bar line before it, you wouldn't need that, but they do it so you don't sing an F sharp there when you should be singing an F natural. So down here, I want to mention this as well. So here's also this is a similar idea but a different key. We're in the key of G major, and you've got a G sharp, which does not belong in the key of G major. But what key are you creating here? This is an E. In fact, this is an E7 because it's got that D there. So this is E7, and it resolves to what? A minor. One more thing, and then we're done. I want to show you this, and this is more similar to the procumenon that we just saw. It's in the key of F again, and it shows you a D major resolving to G minor. However, I want to mention this as well too. There's that thing. We saw that early on, didn't we? That flattened 7th degree of the F major scale. This time it's the alto that's singing it and not the tenor. So I just wanted to mention that. And that's it for this. I hope you learned something. If I left anything out, or if I made any mistakes, or if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And I'll see you later. Bye.